Moment for God.
Every day is a new opportunity to hear and learn from God. Let's take this moment to receive His word for today.
Okay, so you sent over a bunch of stuff for today's deep dive, some theological reflections, personal stories, even something on like the psychology of revenge, and it's all kind of circling around this verse in Romans 12:19. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge; I will repay," says the Lord. It's pretty powerful stuff. So I think what we're going to try to do today is unpack why that instruction hits us so hard and how it might actually change the way we think about when we feel wronged, because, that feeling of wanting to get even, it's pretty primal, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That instinct, as natural as it is, can be really, really destructive. This verse, it comes right out and challenges that gut reaction. And notice how personal it is, too. My dear friends, this isn't just like some command out there floating in space. It's talking directly to you, to people in the community. It immediately sets a different standard for how we should respond to being hurt. It moves us away from that deeply ingrained societal expectation of getting back at someone, which some of your articles talked about.
Yeah, exactly. One of your notes actually mentioned a story where you felt like super betrayed, and the first thing you wanted to do is like get back at the person. That raw emotion is something I think everyone can relate to. So in the verse says, do not take revenge. It's like, it knows we feel that way, but it's saying, nope, there's a better way to handle this.
Right? It's like, okay, yeah, that feeling is real, but there's a deeper way to respond. And that deeper way is this idea of leaving room for God's wrath. One of your theological sources explained this really well. It's not about us wanting God to unleash some kind of crazy rage on someone who hurt us. It's about understanding that God is ultimately in control and that his justice is perfect. It means we accept that he sees the full picture and he'll address things in his own way and on his own time.
Right. It's kind of like trusting like a master craftsman to fix something super delicate instead of like try to do it yourself with a hammer.
Yeah.
And that goes right along with what it says next. It is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. That's a pretty strong statement, right? Like God is saying, justice, that's my department.
Yeah, it is. And if we think about, like you mentioned, those reflections on control, this verse really makes you stop and think trying to get revenge is basically trying to take control, right? Trying to force things to go the way we want. But this quote from Deuteronomy that Paul is bringing up here, it's suggesting that real justice belongs to God. It kind of forces us to ask ourselves, can we really trust that God's justice will win out, even when we just want to see things settled right now on our own terms? It takes a lot to let go like that.
It does. Because in the moment, when you're feeling hurt and angry, letting go can feel like you're doing nothing, like you're letting the person get away with it. But that psychology study you shared had a really interesting point. It said that holding on to that desire for revenge actually hurts the person who's holding on to it more than anyone.
Exactly. That study probably talked about how bitterness and resentment, they eat away at you. They don't just go away. They stick around and they mess with your mind and your emotions. Like one of your personal notes said, holding on to anger is like carrying around a heavy weight. So what's really insightful here is that trusting God to handle justice isn't just about following the rules. It's a way to free yourself from that burden.
So when we choose not to get revenge, when we leave room for God's wrath, we're actually making space inside ourselves for better things, like forgiveness, healing, and eventually peace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Letting go of that need for vengeance is a choice. It's like you're deciding that your own peace of mind is more important than that temporary feeling of getting back at someone.
And those theological sources you sent over, they pointed out that this choice actually goes beyond just how we feel inside. It changes how we interact with the whole world.
Yeah. Think about those stories you mentioned about resilience and forgiveness. When you choose not to retaliate, especially when everyone expects you to, it's like you're reflecting the character of Christ. He responded to some seriously messed up stuff with love and grace. You're basically going against the grain of how the world usually acts, always wanting to get even.
Yeah.
This idea that we should live differently than the world expects is a really important part of this verse.
Yeah, it's a huge change, right?
Yeah.
Our culture always tells us that being strong means being dominant and hitting back. But this verse is saying there's a deeper kind of strength that comes from being humble and patient and really trusting that God is in control. Responding like this can actually throw off the person who hurt you,
Yeah.
catch them off guard.
And what's powerful about this is that choosing trust over revenge isn't just some abstract theological concept. It's about what you do, how you act in tough situations. It's putting your faith into action. It becomes a real example of how faith and love can change a person. True strength isn't about settling the score. It's about letting go of that need and putting your trust in something bigger than yourself.
It's really an invitation. It's asking us to really step back from that human desire for revenge, to trust that there's a bigger plan for justice, to realize that holding on to anger hurts us, and to understand that choosing a different path can actually make a difference in the world.
Exactly. It's not about pretending you weren't wronged or trying to bury your emotions. It's about making a conscious decision to respond in a way that puts ultimate justice, your own well-being, and higher values above that quick hit of revenge. It's a change in perspective that takes effort and a lot of trust.
So for you listening, think about a time, maybe recently, when you felt like you were treated unfairly, even if it was something small. How do you think using these principles from Romans 12.19, that choice to not get revenge and instead trust in a bigger sense of justice, how might that change the way you see that situation? And maybe even how you would act going forward? It's a tough idea, maybe even a little counterintuitive. It could lead to some real change.
Yeah, it could.
Well, this has been a really great discussion. I think we covered a lot today. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, till next time.